In 2020, Simon Cowell experienced a life-changing moment when he fell off an electric bike and shattered his spine. The accident, severe as it was only the latest in a series of life-altering events for the mogul behind American Idol, The X Factor, and Britain's Got Talent. However, the price Simon paid for fame and power was far more than what could be seen on the surface. His childhood lacked affection, he faced bankruptcy at 30, and dealt with the emotional fallout of personal losses, including the tragic passing of Liam Payne. All of this contributed to the man Simon would become at 65, who now clings to time, holding his son Eric tightly, aware that time is running out. A lonely childhood in London. Simon Cowell was born on October 7, 1959, in Lambeth, London. His family appeared perfect from the outside. They lived in the affluent area of Elstree, Hertfordshire, in a house that was the picture of middle-class respectability. However, Simon learned early that wealth could not buy warmth. His mother, Julie Brett, a former ballet dancer and socialite, was emotionally distant. Though admired by others, Julie's love was never expressed in ways Simon could understand. As for his father, Eric Sig Philip Cowell, a stern music executive, he was equally distant. Simon was constantly seeking approval, but his father never once told him he was proud. This lack of affection would stay with Simon and shape his quest for validation throughout his life. The void of unspoken words. Simon's relationship with his parents was one of emotional neglect. Though his mother loved him, she didn't know how to show it, and his father, a perfectionist, offered no praise or encouragement. This void left Simon feeling invisible and unworthy. Later in life, Simon admitted the pain he felt from his father's silence. In a family where excellence was expected, Simon always felt like a failure. His classmates at school didn't offer much solace either. As a student, he was rebellious, not because he was unintelligent, but because he was bored. He struggled to conform to an education system that didn't nurture his individuality. This early sense of being ignored would become a theme throughout his life. Simon's struggles with school and career. At school, Simon's disinterest in academics and trouble with authority didn't endear him to his teachers. He was often labeled difficult, but in reality, Simon was simply restless and out of place. His grades were poor, and when he left school, he had no qualifications to speak of. Simon's failure to meet expectations at school further deepened his feelings of inadequacy. He tried various jobs in his late teens, none of which led to success. While his peers advanced in their careers, Simon felt stuck, unseen, and left behind. It wasn't long before his father pulled strings to get him a job in the mailroom at EMI Music Publishing. But even then, Simon was invisible. Every morning he carried coffee to the music industry's elites, yet no one noticed him. The humiliation of returning to EMI. Simon's time at EMI Music Publishing was marked by a crushing sense of invisibility. He worked in the mailroom, sorting fan mail for famous artists, but his own presence seemed insignificant. This period became a source of bitterness for Simon. He felt humiliated by the monotony and the constant reminder that, despite his connections, he was still unseen. Eventually, he quit and tried to find work elsewhere, but the world outside was even more unkind. Rejection became familiar. He was broke and desperate, and he had no choice but to crawl back to the same mailroom he had fled. The humiliation stung, but in it, something began to change. Instead of giving up, Simon grew more determined to make a name for himself, no matter the cost. The rise and fall of Fanfare Records. For a time, Fanfare Records seemed to be the answer to Simon's dreams. The label produced chart-topping hits and earned Simon a reputation as a rising star in the music industry. With success came wealth, expensive dinners, flashy clothes, and an increasing social circle. For the first time in his life, Simon felt seen and valued. However, the rise of fanfare records was short-lived. The novelty pop sound that had made Sunita's song a hit soon became out of style. As the market shifted, Simon's success crumbled. By the late 1980s, fanfare records was in decline. Revenue dried up, and Simon was left with nothing but debts. His brief moment of success was over. At 30, Simon found himself bankrupt, with no label, no income, and a tarnished reputation. Back to square one, a return to his parents' home. The collapse of fanfare records was a devastating blow. Simon, at 30 years old, had to move back into his parents' home, into the same childhood bedroom where he had spent years feeling invisible. This was not just a financial failure. It was an emotional collapse. He had worked so hard only to see it all slip away. The humiliation was crushing. Simon had tasted success, only to have it snatched away. His father's silence seemed louder than ever. During this dark period, Simon stopped taking calls, avoided friends, and barely left his room. The world had written him off, and he believed it. But Simon's ability to rise from the ashes of failure would soon be tested once again. The resilience to rebuild. Despite the despair, Simon Cowell was not finished. Rejection had been a constant in his life, but each time, he found the will to rise again. After hitting rock bottom, Simon began to rebuild. He took small consulting gigs and pitched ideas to people who had once written him off. Slowly, his determination began to pay off. He learned that in the entertainment world, success wasn't about critical respect. It was about knowing what the masses wanted. Simon shifted his focus from pleasing critics to catering to ordinary people. He had learned that the key to success was understanding what the public desired before they even knew it themselves. This lesson, born from failure, would shape his future. The making of a mogul. By the early 1990s, Simon Cowell had shed his reputation as a failure and started his most important project yet, the creation of American Idol and its sister shows. These programs focused on finding raw talent and selling it to the masses. Simon wasn't just looking for star potential. He was searching for marketability. His sharp, sometimes brutal judgments became an essential part of the show's dynamic, and his bluntness earned him both admiration and scorn. By the time American Idol became a global phenomenon, Simon was no longer the man hiding in his childhood bedroom. He was a mogul. A transformational shift. Through the success of American Idol, The X Factor, and Britain's Got Talent, Simon Cowell had built an empire worth hundreds of millions. Yet, despite his immense fortune and fame, he was still haunted by the scars of his past. The boy who had been invisible in his childhood home had become a man who could command attention. But this success came at a personal cost. Simon's childhood had shaped his hunger for success, but it also left him lonely. The hunger to prove himself was never fully satisfied, and he had learned that fame and fortune could not erase the wounds of his past. Even as he dominated television, Simon still felt the sting of those early rejections, reminding him that no amount of power could change the past. The man behind the mogul. Today, at 65, Simon Cowell's life has transformed in ways he never could have imagined during his days of failure. He has found success, yes, but at a cost. His 2 near-fatal accidents, the loss of friends, and the weight of his past have all shaped who he is today. No longer the ruthless judge, Simon now moves carefully, both physically and emotionally. As he holds his son Eric tight, he's acutely aware that time is slipping away. In the end, the boy who was once invisible has become one of the most powerful men in television, but he knows that success can't fill every void, and that time, once gone, cannot be bought back.